Tom, your 18-year coding legacy is basically boomer spaghetti code that's holding us back from true innovation. Bradley Lawson said this with a straight face during the video call that ended my career. The kid was 31, had never written a line of production code for a defense contractor, and was calling systems that handled $800 million in government contracts spaghetti. That was 6 weeks ago. Today, his company is begging me to come back. Let me back up. The name's Tom Brennan, 52 years old, and until recently I was a senior systems architect at Meridian Aerospace, a defense contractor that's been building satellite communication systems since 1982. I joined them in 2006 when they were still small enough that everyone knew each other's coffee preferences, and the CEO's dog was our unofficial stress therapist. When Brad fired me on that Friday afternoon, I had exactly $3,247 in my checking account, a divorce settlement that required $200 monthly payments to my ex-wife and a daughter starting her sophomore year at Syracuse with $45,000 annual tuition. Health insurance through Cobra would cost me $1,800 a month. You do the math on how long that was going to last. But here's what Brad didn't know when he delivered his little speech about organizational efficiency and resource optimization. I owned every system keeping his company running. Not technically, legally. And the difference between those two words was about to cost him everything. See, back when I first joined Meridian, my buddy Jake from the base legal office insisted on adding a specific clause to my employment contract. Section 7.3 read, "In the event of termination without 120 days written notice, all intellectual property developed by employee during term of employment shall revert to employee effective immediately." Jake called it an insurance policy. The founder, Bill Morrison, a former Air Force colonel who understood that good engineers don't grow on trees, signed it without reading the fine print. He was too busy worrying about security clearances and wondering if the espresso machine was tax deductible. That clause sat quiet for 18 years, waiting for someone arrogant enough to test it. Brad arrived at Meridian 6 weeks before he fired me, brought in by the board to modernize operations ahead of a planned $1.8 billion acquisition. He had an MBA from Wharton, a venture capital network, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having built anything more complex than a PowerPoint presentation. First day on the job, he walked into our Monday all-hands meeting like a TED Talk speaker who'd gotten lost on his way to disrupt education. Designer polo shirt, haircut that probably cost more than most people's car payments, and a LinkedIn smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking hands. He announced we were entering a new paradigm of operational excellence through agile transformation and cloud-native infrastructure. In plain English, someone's getting fired, and it's probably the old guys who remember when documentation actually mattered. Brad called himself a transformation catalyst and signed emails as Bradley Lawson, Chief Innovation Officer, with actual sparkle emojis in his signature. The man was 31 years old and put emojis in business correspondence. His first strategic initiative was examining our legacy architecture dependencies, which was consultant speak for "let's see what Tom built and figure out how to replace him." The legacy he wanted to modernize was running satellite communication systems for NORAD, encrypted protocols for Navy destroyers, and authentication frameworks that took security clearances just to read the documentation. This wasn't some startup where you move fast and break things. One bug in my code could mean a destroyer loses contact with headquarters during a crisis. One security hole could let foreign intelligence into classified networks. This was the kind of work that keeps you awake at night, not because of stress, but because you understand the responsibility. But Brad saw inefficiency. He saw outdated technology that needed disrupting. He saw a 52-year-old engineer who took too long to respond to his quick sync requests and didn't post enough motivational content on the company Slack. He started small, renamed our project dashboard to the Innovation Hub, cut code review time in half because it was slowing down velocity, installed an AI programming assistant that cost $5,000 monthly to auto-suggest security vulnerabilities disguised as optimizations. Then he started pulling my junior engineers into one-on-one growth conversations, said he was mentoring them toward relevance. What he was really doing was pumping them for information about my systems, while planting doubt about whether the old guard still had value. I'd find them afterward looking confused, mumbling things like Brad says our test coverage doesn't align with industry benchmarks, or he asked why we're still using manual deployment instead of continuous integration. These were engineers I'd trained personally. Smart people who understood that in our business, you don't push code to production without 3 levels of human review because one mistake could compromise national security. But Brad had them thinking they were working in the Stone Age because we didn't ship updates twice daily like some social media app. My calendar started looking empty, no more invites to architecture meetings. Product managers began messaging me in lowercase like they were afraid I might reply in all caps. Security briefings I'd attended for 16 years suddenly didn't need my input anymore. Brad launched a Slack channel called Next Gen Systems and forgot to add me. He posted screenshots there, pictures of system diagrams I'd created, with red circles around components I'd built, captioned with phrases like legacy debt analysis and time to evolve. I watched it all unfold, saying, nothing, just documenting everything, every email, every Slack message, every edit to our system's documentation. I saved it all with timestamps and digital signatures. The breaking point came during a client presentation. Brad was demoing what he called his streamlined authentication framework to a room of Pentagon procurement officers. What he was actually showing them was my API system, redesigned with a new color scheme and renamed with buzzwords. He presented my security protocols, ones I'd spent 3 years perfecting after a breach almost cost us a Navy contract, like he'd invented them over a weekend. One of the Pentagon guys asked a technical question about fail-safe procedures. Brad fumbled for 30 seconds before saying he'd circle back with the technical team on implementation details. The technical team was me, and I wasn't in the room. That's when I knew he was planning to fire me. You don't exclude the system architect from meetings about his own architecture unless you're planning to cut him loose. I started preparing, not emotionally, strategically. I pulled copies of everything, Git commit histories showing 3,247 individual contributions authored by me over 18 years. Original architecture documents predating Brad's employment by decades, email threads where I'd warned against the exact changes he was pushing through to pad his quarterly metrics. Most importantly, I printed out my employment contract and highlighted section 7.3 in yellow marker. Then I scanned it and sent it to Jim Murphy, my lawyer, with a subject line that read, "Still enforceable if they fire me without notice?" His reply came back in 8 minutes. Absolutely. They'd be legally screwed. The call came on a Friday at 3:47 p.m. It always happens on Friday. Something about executives thinking bad news goes down easier when it's served cold before a weekend. Brad was in his ergonomic standing desk chair, sipping something green from a water bottle the size of a small fire extinguisher. He had that look people get when they think they're about to deliver a masterclass in leadership. "Hey, Tom," he started, voice casual like we were discussing lunch plans. "I've been doing strategic thinking about organizational efficiency and resource allocation." He leaned back like a basketball player who'd just made a three-pointer from half court. I knew what was coming, but I let him finish his speech about paradigm shifts and optimizing human capital for maximum velocity. The guy had apparently swallowed a business school textbook and was regurgitating it word by word. Then he delivered the line that sealed his fate. "Your position is being eliminated effective immediately. But don't stress, your fingerprints are all over our success story. All your work belongs to the company now, right?" He actually laughed. A sharp, empty sound like a cash register with a broken bell. No HR representative. No severance discussion. No transition planning. Just a video call and a Slack message, 20 minutes later. "Sorry we couldn't sync up more on transition timelines. Sending good vibes for your next adventure." I didn't lose my temper, didn't threaten anyone, just logged off, closed my laptop like folding a newspaper, and poured 2 fingers of bourbon. Then I opened my laptop one more time and sent an email that would change everything. To james.murphy.esco@murphylegal.com. Subject, terminated without notice. Section 7.3 is live. Attachments, employment agreement, 2006 by PDF, git commit history, .zip, Slack, archives. Zip. Jim. They fired me today without warning. No paperwork, just a video call and a joke about how my work belongs to them now. Section 7.3 is in effect as of 3:47 p.m. Initiate IP reversion process. Draft cease and desist. Also prepare an invoice. Let's make sure they understand the real cost of not reading contracts. Tom, I hit send and slept better than I had in months. Let me explain that contract clause and why it existed. Back in 2006, when I joined Meridian, it was barely more than a startup trying to break into satellite communications. I'd just left a Fortune 500 where I'd watched good engineers get burned by corporate politics. Companies would hire you to build their core systems, then fire you and claim ownership of everything you'd created. My buddy Jake from Base Legal had seen it happen enough times. When I told him about the job offer, he insisted we add protection. Section 7.3 was his masterpiece. In the event of termination without 120 days written notice, all intellectual property developed by employee during term of employment shall revert to employee effective immediately. Bill Morrison, the founder, signed without blinking, former Air Force colonel who understood that good engineers don't grow on trees. He was more worried about getting clearances approved and whether the coffee budget was tax deductible. That clause sat quiet for 18 years, waiting for someone stupid enough to test it. Jim had my legal documents ready by Sunday morning. Didn't offer small talk, just opened his laptop and said, "Time to teach some MBAs about contract law." We drafted the cease and desist first. Clean, professional, devastating. Not aggressive, precise. We attached screenshots of my Git commits, all time-stamped years before Brad's arrival. Original architecture documents that predated his employment by nearly 2 decades. Slack logs where I'd warned against the exact changes he'd pushed through. Then came the invoice. Not some round number that looked made up. We calculated actual damages, $1,847,293 based on licensing fees for comparable government systems, compensation for unauthorized use, security breach liability, and what Jim called the education surcharge. I added a note at the bottom. Your team may retain provisional access to affected systems for 30 days pending negotiation. Further use will trigger federal contract violations per attached DoD compliance requirements. Jim leaned back. You want me to send this Monday morning when they're drinking their overpriced coffee? Or Friday to ruin their weekend? Monday. Let them choke on their productivity smoothies. At exactly 9:15 a.m. Monday, Jim hit send. Subject line. Intellectual property reversion. Immediate action required. The body was surgical. Dear Mr. Lawson, per Section 7.3 of the attached employment agreement, all intellectual property developed by Thomas Brennan during his 18-year tenure is hereby reverted to his ownership, effective immediately upon termination without proper notice. Below that, Jim attached the receipts. Git history showing 3,247 individual commits authored by me. Change logs tied to every system Brad was planning to modernize. Screenshots of Slack conversations where I'd explained critical dependencies to his audit team. The original system architecture I'd designed in 2008, now repackaged in Brad's presentations as his innovative framework, word for word, down to the variable names I'd chosen during debugging sessions. At 11:33 a.m., Brad posted in the Next Gen Systems channel, "Full speed ahead team, big week coming up. Let's own this transformation." He must have thought it was a bluff. Figured I was just another bitter ex-employee trying to scare them with legal theater. He didn't understand something fundamental. His entire transformation was built on my backbone. Every optimization he'd demoed, my algorithms, every security improvement he'd promised investors, my protocols. Even the user interface mock-ups used CSS frameworks I'd written during late nights when the only other person in the office was security. By 2 p.m., Jim called. No response yet. Good, I said. Let him cook. By 5:30, I'd heard from former colleagues. Brad had finished a team meeting where he called the IP letter a minor distraction from someone who couldn't adapt to change. Told everyone legal had it handled. That night, I reviewed commit logs on my personal backup. Line after line of dates, file changes, comments. Most boring, some brilliant, all mine. It was a record of time itself. My 2 a.m. fixes, weekend emergency patches, bleeding eyes during system migrations when caffeine wore off, and only muscle memory kept keyboards clicking. Brad thought he was launching a transformation. He was actually lighting the fuse on his own career. The crash started Wednesday. They'd pushed Brad's streamlined authentication system to production, ignoring my warnings about dependency conflicts. Within 6 hours, their primary government portal was throwing security errors. Enterprise clients couldn't access classified data streams. Customer support looked like a war zone. Authentication failure, session timeout, lost connection to secured servers. Brad's response on the company blog was the worst possible thing during system failure. We're investigating minor connectivity issues. Everything is under control. By Thursday, the system was down 8 hours. Their new lead developer, a 26-year-old who'd never worked with classified systems, went radio silent. Meanwhile, automated security protocols I'd built were triggering lockdowns every time someone tried bypassing proper authentication. Friday brought federal scrutiny. Defense Contract Management Agency sent automated compliance notice. System security certifications under review pending resolution of technical irregularities. All classified data access suspended until further notice. Translation: you broke something critical, and now the government wants answers. The investors panicked. I got forwarded a BCC from legal. Urgent clarification required regarding intellectual property ownership related to core functionality. Any pending litigation must be disclosed before Wednesday board review. Brad's tone changed overnight. No more rocket emojis or standing desk selfies. He started keeping camera off during calls. The confidence in his voice, once booming, now came through thin and strained. The VP of Engineering called me personally. "Tom, would you be willing to talk? Help us understand the technical challenges?" I told him I was busy, not out of cruelty, strategy. Let them panic. Let Brad sweat. Let the board realize their shiny transformation was built on quicksand and MBA buzzwords. 2 weeks after my termination, emergency board meeting was called. Brad wasn't invited as presenter. By noon, his bio was quietly removed from the company website. No announcement, no farewell email, just digital erasure. Press release came 3 hours later. Leadership transition as part of strategic realignment focused on operational excellence and regulatory compliance. Corporate speak for, our CTO drove into a legal minefield and we're looking for the exit. That evening, I got the call from the investor who mattered, the guy who'd turned Bill's startup into a defense contracting powerhouse. "Tom, first thing, we owe you an apology. We trusted wrong people and clearly undervalued your contributions." He paused. "We'd like you back, not just as engineer, chief systems architect. Your vision, your structure, full authority over technical direction." I let silence stretch just long enough for him to feel it. "If I come back, it's under one condition. Name it." "I keep the IP. Full legal ownership of everything I've built. You license it from me, month to month, revocable on my terms. No blanket transfers. I hold the keys, you borrow them." Long pause. "That's unprecedented." "So is firing me over video call." He laughed, short and genuine. "Fair enough." They agreed. I came back not as an employee, but as something they'd never dealt with before. A contractor with veto power over any system that touched my code. Full autonomy, no managers, no alignment meetings. Every line of my new contract was written by me, reviewed by Jim, and signed with shaking hands by 3 separate executives. But first, they had to pay the bill. Jim updated the final invoice one last time, $2,194,567.83. Unauthorized use, security breach liability, investor damages, and what he diplomatically called consultant education fees. They paid it without negotiation. Wire transfer hit my account on a Tuesday morning while I was drinking coffee and reading about their stock price dropping 12%. The money was nice, but it wasn't about the money. It was about respect, about understanding that when you fire someone who built your foundation, you better make sure they didn't write the blueprints in pencil. Walking back through those office doors felt different. Nobody treated me like a returning hero. That's not how engineering works. They just nodded, cleared workspace, made room at the conference table. But this time, I wasn't sitting at their table. I owned it. The new interim CTO, a mild-mannered guy named Paul from their partner firm, tried to schedule a welcome-back call. I declined. Told him to email me only if the matter was billable because my consulting rate was $750 per hour and small talk wasn't in the scope of work. First order of business was fixing what Brad had broken. The authentication system he'd pushed to production was a security nightmare wrapped in buzzwords. Every shortcut he'd taken to increase velocity had created vulnerabilities that could land us all in federal prison. I spent 3 days just documenting the damage. His team had removed fail-safe protocols I'd built after a 2019 breach. They'd eliminated redundant authentication loops that weren't redundant. They were sanity checks designed to catch exactly the kind of problems Brad's streamlined system was causing. The junior developers who'd worked on his optimization looked embarrassed when I walked them through what they'd actually built. Good kids who'd been told to move fast and break things, not understanding they were playing with systems that could break national security. "Why didn't anyone tell us this handled classified communications?" one of them asked. "Because Brad never bothered to read the documentation," I said, "and nobody wanted to look stupid by asking questions." It took 2 weeks to rebuild what should never have been torn down. 2 weeks of 12-hour days, emergency patches, and conference calls with Pentagon procurement officers who were not amused by having their secure communications interrupted for modernization initiatives. But the real satisfaction came from watching the company adapt to my new terms. Every major system decision now went through me. Every security protocol required my approval. Every piece of code that touched classified data needed my digital signature. I wasn't their employee anymore. I was their landlord, and they were renting my intellectual property month by month. The board meetings were particularly entertaining. Executives who'd rubber-stamped Brad's hiring now had to sit through presentations where I explained why their previous decisions had nearly caused a federal compliance disaster. They listened with the quiet attention of people who'd just learned the difference between confidence and competence. Moving forward, I told them during one such meeting, any changes to core systems will require 90-day advance notice and full security review. No exceptions. The CEO, a finance guy who understood profit margins better than programming languages, nodded like a student taking notes. "Whatever you think is best, Tom. You're the expert." Funny how getting fired and nearly causing a government contract suspension could clarify reporting relationships. Brad, meanwhile, had vanished from the industry entirely. No LinkedIn farewell tour, no startup consulting gigs. One day he was disrupting legacy systems. The next, he was a cautionary tale buried in the footnotes of a failed transformation. I heard through channels he'd tried to blame everyone, legal, the engineers, even me, for not documenting dependencies clearly enough. But the board didn't care who started the fire. They just wanted someone to explain it to the insurance investigators. 3 months after my return, we landed a new $400 million contract with the Space Force. The procurement officer specifically mentioned our robust security protocols and experienced technical leadership as deciding factors. Brad's modernization had nearly cost them $800 million in existing contracts. My old-fashioned approach just won them $400 million more. The junior engineers started asking different questions. Instead of wanting to know why we couldn't deploy faster, they asked why certain protocols existed. Instead of complaining about documentation requirements, they requested training on security compliance. Turns out when you explain that their code might be the difference between a satellite staying in communication during a crisis or going dark, people take testing more seriously. I started mentoring again, but differently than before. No more assuming they'd figure things out through trial and error. No more hoping they'd read documentation that wasn't written for their experience level. I began holding weekly sessions where I'd walk through real incidents, explain the reasoning behind seemingly bureaucratic procedures, share stories about the human cost of technical failures. "This isn't about slowing you down," I'd tell them. "It's about making sure your code works when lives depend on it." One of the brightest, a kid named Sarah who'd been caught in Brad's velocity optimization crusade, stayed after one session to ask a question. "Why didn't you fight back sooner, when Brad was making all those changes?" I considered the question. Because sometimes the best way to teach someone they're wrong is to let them prove it themselves. Brad never would have believed me if I'd just told him his ideas were dangerous. He had to see it fail. She nodded slowly. But what if the failure had been worse? What if people had gotten hurt? Smart question. The kind Brad never asked. "That's why we have fail-safes," I said, and why I never actually deleted my backup systems, even when he ordered me to. The real systems were still running underneath his optimizations. When his streamlined authentication failed, mine kicked in automatically. Her eyes widened. "You knew he was going to fail?" I knew his approach was unsustainable. Too many shortcuts, not enough understanding of what the code actually did, but I also knew my safeguards would prevent real damage. And if they hadn't, then I would have spoken up sooner, politics be damned. But sometimes the best way to prove your value is to let people see what happens when you're not there. 6 months after my return, the acquisition went through. The new parent company paid $1.8 billion for a defense contractor with proven systems, experienced leadership, and a track record of federal compliance. My consulting fees were written into the purchase agreement as a cost of doing business. During the transition meeting, the acquiring company's CTO asked me about our technical architecture. "How long would it take to replace your systems with something more modern?" he asked. I smiled. "About 18 years, assuming you can find someone who understands government security requirements and has the patience to do it right." He didn't ask again. The funny thing about corporate revenge stories is they're not really about revenge. They're about consequences. Brad didn't get punished because I was vindictive. He got fired because his decisions had predictable results that he was too arrogant to anticipate. I didn't win because I was smarter or more experienced, though both probably helped. I won because I'd spent 18 years building systems designed to survive exactly the kind of disruption he represented. Sometimes the best defense against innovation theater is just being really, really good at your job. And having a good lawyer doesn't hurt either. 2 years later, I'm sitting in my home office looking at a LinkedIn message from a recruiter. Another startup wants to hire me to revolutionize legacy systems in the defense sector. They're offering stock options, unlimited PTO, and the chance to work with cutting-edge AI to disrupt traditional aerospace paradigms. I deleted it without responding. Some lessons take longer to learn than others. The truth is, my relationship with Meridian evolved into something neither of us expected. I wasn't just their consultant anymore. I'd become something like their technical conscience. Every major decision crossed my desk not because they legally had to ask, but because they'd learned the cost of not asking. The new parent company, a Fortune 100 defense contractor with operations spanning 3 decades, initially tried to standardize our systems with their corporate IT infrastructure. Their CTO, a sharp woman named Patricia who'd climbed the ranks through actual technical achievement rather than PowerPoint presentations, flew out to meet with me personally. "We've got enterprise resource planning systems that could streamline your operations," she said during our first meeting. "Cloud-based solutions, automated deployment pipelines, real-time analytics dashboards." I pulled up our current system architecture on the conference room display. "See this authentication protocol? It's integrated with 14 different classified networks across 6 government agencies. The backup systems alone require physical security clearances that take 8 months to process." She studied the diagram. "How long did this take to build?" 8 years for the core framework, another 6 years to get all the integrations certified. The documentation is 847 pages long because every single decision had to be justified to federal auditors. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "And you're telling me we can't just migrate this to AWS?" "You could try. The compliance violations would cost about $50 million in fines, assuming the Pentagon doesn't revoke our security clearances entirely." She nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to understand why you charge $750 an hour." That's when I realized something had changed, not just at Meridian, but in how people approached technical problems. The Brad Lawsons of the world were still out there, still talking about disruption and agility and transformation. But companies were starting to ask different questions. Instead of, "How fast can we modernize this?" they were asking, "What are the risks if we get this wrong?" Instead of, "Can we replace our senior engineers with cheaper talent?" they were asking, "How do we retain institutional knowledge?" Instead of, "Why does this code look so complicated?" they were asking, "What problems is this complexity solving?" The pendulum was swinging back toward competence, and Brad's failure had become a case study in what not to do. I started getting invited to speak at industry conferences, not about specific technologies, but about the human cost of technical debt and the hidden risks of moving too fast. My talks had titles like "Why Boring Code Saves Lives and the True Price of Technical Shortcuts." During one presentation to a room full of CTOs and engineering directors, someone asked about the Brad situation directly. "How do you deal with executives who don't understand technical complexity?" I thought about it. You document everything. You explain the risks in business terms they can understand. You build safeguards into your systems that survive bad management decisions. And if they still don't listen, you make sure your employment contract has good lawyers behind it." The room laughed, but I was serious. The best revenge against incompetent management isn't sabotage or passive aggression. It's being so thoroughly professional that their failures become obvious to everyone who matters. 6 months ago, I got a call from a former colleague who'd left Meridian during the Brad era. He was working at a startup that built satellite communication software for commercial space companies. "Tom, we've got a problem. Our new CTO wants to migrate everything to microservices and implement continuous deployment. He says our current architecture is too monolithic." I asked the obvious question. Does he understand that you're handling communication protocols for spacecraft? He says that's old thinking. Says we need to embrace cloud-native solutions and DevOps best practices. How much funding do you have left? About 8 months runway. Fire him now or you'll be out of business in 6 months. They didn't listen. The company folded 4 months later when their modernized system failed during a critical mission and their biggest client pulled their contract. The CTO moved on to another startup, his LinkedIn profile still bragging about transforming legacy aerospace systems through innovative cloud solutions. That's the thing about the Brad Lawsons of the world. They rarely stay around long enough to see the consequences of their decisions. They optimize for quarterly metrics and annual performance reviews, not for the multi-year reliability cycles that complex systems require. But those consequences don't disappear just because the person who caused them got a new job. Someone else has to clean up the mess, fix the broken systems, and rebuild the trust that was destroyed by premature optimization. My daughter graduated from Syracuse last spring with a degree in computer science. She'd been watching my career changes from a distance, occasionally asking questions about work during our monthly phone calls. "Dad, do you ever regret not taking one of those startup offers? Some of your consulting clients are offering you full-time positions with pretty serious money." It was a fair question. I was making good money as a consultant, but the equity packages at some of these companies could have been life-changing money. "I like being able to say no," I told her. "When you're an employee, you have to implement bad ideas and hope they don't cause too much damage. When you're a consultant, you can refuse projects that are obviously going to fail. But don't you want to build something new instead of just maintaining old systems?" Another fair question. The systems I maintain aren't old because they're obsolete. They're old because they work. There's a difference between legacy code and proven code. She was quiet for a moment. "Is that why you were so mad about what Brad did?" Mad wasn't the right word. I wasn't mad about getting fired. I was frustrated that he was going to hurt people by breaking systems he didn't understand. The code isn't just intellectual property. It's infrastructure that other people depend on. Like what? Like the authentication system that keeps foreign intelligence agencies out of our military communications. Like the fail-safe protocols that prevent spacecraft from losing contact during emergencies. Like the backup systems that take over when primary networks fail during natural disasters. She was studying machine learning and artificial intelligence, technologies that moved fast and encouraged experimentation. But she was starting to understand that not all problems could be solved by training a neural network and deploying it to production. So what do you tell people who want to innovate without breaking everything? Start small, test thoroughly, document everything, plan for failure, and if you don't understand why something exists, ask someone who does before you delete it. Last month I got an email from Brad. First time I'd heard from him since his disappearance from Meridian. The subject line read, "Catching up and exploring opportunities." He'd apparently been doing some consulting work for early-stage companies, helping them navigate technical scaling challenges. He wanted to know if I'd be interested in collaborating on a project involving AI-driven optimization of legacy defense systems. I stared at that email for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond with a detailed explanation of why that was exactly the kind of thinking that had gotten him fired in the first place. Part of me wanted to forward it to Jim just for the entertainment value. Instead, I deleted it. Some people learn from their mistakes. Others just find new ways to make the same mistakes with different buzzwords. The real lesson of my story isn't about the importance of reading employment contracts, though that's certainly part of it. It's about the difference between innovation and disruption, between moving fast and breaking things versus building systems that last. Brad saw my 18 years of experience as a liability to be optimized away. But that experience represented 18 years of learning what worked, what didn't, and why. It represented relationships with clients who trusted our systems with critical missions. It represented knowledge about edge cases and failure modes that you can't learn from documentation or discover through trial and error. When you fire someone like that, you're not just losing an employee. You're losing institutional memory, technical expertise, and the kind of professional judgment that comes from seeing systems succeed and fail in the real world. The revenge, if you want to call it that, wasn't in the money or the contract clause or watching Brad get fired. The revenge was in being right, in building systems robust enough to survive bad management, in having the documentation and safeguards and backup plans that proved I'd been doing my job correctly all along. Today, I'm still consulting for Meridian and a handful of other defense contractors, still writing the kind of boring, reliable code that keeps critical systems running, still mentoring engineers who are learning the difference between clever solutions and good solutions, and I'm still reading every employment contract very, very carefully, because the next time someone calls my life's work boomer spaghetti, I want to make sure they understand exactly what they're buying when they try to replace it. Sometimes the best innovation is knowing what not to change. Sometimes the most disruptive thing you can do is just being really, really good at your job. And sometimes when people don't appreciate what you've built, the smartest thing you can do is let them find out what happens when it's gone. Trust me on this one, I'm the guy who wrote the manual.